I absolutely love playing little-known and unconventional openings in chess to surprise my opponents and beat them, simply because they often have no idea what to do in those situations. In this video, I'm going to teach you an extremely surprising and unexpected variation and an opening that we all know very well. We're going to play with the white pieces, and pay attention because this variation is going to bring you a lot of joy, just like it's been doing for me. Let's start with the bishop's opening, which is considered to be one of our favorite chess openings. As you already know, the most popular thing to do here is to first develop the knight, thereby gaining the initiative to attack this pawn right here. In many videos, we've talked about the bishop's opening, but in all of them, we look at the response knight to f6, right? Why? Well, because since we don't actually gain the initiative by attacking anything at all, our opponent might start to think, I'm going to move this knight, while at the same time attacking this pawn right here. We've seen it in several videos on the channel. If you want, after watching this video, you can go check those out if you are interested. Because in this video, we're going to focus specifically on what happens if they develop the other knight and also the bishop, which is actually one of the most popular lines in the bishop's opening. First, we're going to develop this knight here, and as I just mentioned, let's suppose they don't develop this knight, because we already know how to respond to that. Instead, they develop this bishop to c5, which is very popular. Here, we're going to take advantage of the fact that we haven't developed this knight yet to play the brutal move. Pay attention, okay? Queen to g4. This is going to be the move we focus on in this video, because it's a move that's practically impossible to stop, especially if your opponents have less than 2300 elo. It's a very strong move that has allowed me to win so many games. Sorry, I can't even speak. I haven't even had time to count them all. What are we threatening here? Very good. We're currently threatening this pawn on g7, that's quite obvious, but in addition to that, we also have several more subtle and hidden threats that your opponent probably won't immediately notice here, alright? The good thing is that since you've watched this video, when you play the game, especially if it's a fast game, you'll have everything planned out, and your opponent will waste too much time thinking of a possible solution that will never come. If I ask you, alright friends, how would you respond to this attack? How would you defend against the threat of queen takes g7? Because this threat is pretty strong. If our opponent right now says, well, you know what? I'll play d6, attacking your queen, and I don't care if you take here. We'll simply capture on g7. And not only that, but this queen is going to be in quite a bit of danger. If they try to bring the queen over here, we could also trade. Or we could even bring the knight in at some point, and that would be a total bargain for us. Sorry, the queen is over here. So it's clear that they really should defend this pawn. This is very important. Think about how you would do it. I'm sure very few of you would think of playing king to f8. Why? Because it's a move where we actually bring out the king much too early, we already have to give up the option of castling. It seems like a really bad move, doesn't it? Well, let me tell you, it's actually the least bad of all the options. So for all of you who thought of king to f8, you've got something going for you. It's the least bad move to save it. But anyway, there's something here, that brings us a lot of joy in this position that almost nobody, well, of course, nobody has ever answered king to f8 to me. Instead, I've always gotten two main responses. The first move to consider is g6, mainly because it directly defends this particular point. However, of course, it does have a downside, which is that this bishop will then be able to come in through the dark squares way too strongly, creating a lot of pressure. Remember well that when all the pawns are on white squares, the dark squares suddenly become a major weakness that we can take advantage of with our pieces, especially with knights and bishops. Which bishop would we use to take advantage of this? Obviously, the dark squared bishop. That's why a lot of people here often say, well, this particular attack doesn't really bother me at all, because I have an extremely strong and reliable move, which is queen to f6. Not only does it defend the g7 square very effectively, but it also develops the queen in such an active and powerful way that I'm immediately threatening queen takes f2, thanks to our bishop as well, which is supporting the attack. This combination makes the position much safer and gives me a strong initiative. Do you see it? At this point, I'm sure many of you would say, my opponent found the answer to my attack, so it was all for nothing. But let me tell you something. Your opponent is already completely lost just for having played queen to f6, which seems like the most logical move of all. What's our response? Defend this square here? No, right? Our correct response here is to make the following move. Knight to d5. We're going to centralize this knight in such a way that we're creating two extremely strong and powerful threats on the board. What's the first one? The threat to the queen. And what's the second one? The threat of knight takes on c7. We attack the king, we attack the rook, and we would end up winning either the queen or the rook. So this threat seems like it can't be stopped. But here you might say, wait a minute, chess teacher. You're literally hanging your queen on f2, defended by the pawn, and now they're coming in way too strong. Plus, they always have time to defend afterward. Well, no, because these are just hallucinations for our opponent, nothing more than that. They're actually not threatening us with anything real or concrete. Yes, they're giving us a check, that's true, and we do have to move the king. But once the king has moved to a safe square, how would you possibly keep attacking this white monarch? There's really no way to continue, because the bishop is defending these two important squares, the queen can't break through the defenses, and there's simply no possible way to check our king any further. So here, let's think about something for a moment. What are we threatening? Well, we're still very clearly threatening queen takes pawn, which would result in winning the rook. And in addition to that, we're also threatening knight takes pawn with check, which would win the other rook as well. In other words, here our opponent really can't save themselves in any way at all. For example, let's take a look at the most typical responses that could be played and see exactly how to win immediately in each case. Since they can't defend against either threat, a lot of people say, well, I'll just keep developing, bringing more pieces into the attack, so that maybe I can jump in at the knights and eventually checkmate over here. But this would obviously be a complete mistake. We should simply punish it with queen takes pawn. Alright? That's important. If they bring out this knight, take here, but don't come to take here because they're attacking our queen. We're threatening their rook and we're threatening the knight with two pieces. In other words, the rook absolutely has to move out of the way. And once it moves, that knight will be completely and totally ours. And not only that, but once we capture this knight, we're also threatening knight takes on c7 again. So let me show you a possible line that could actually happen in this position. They have to move the rook. Rook to g8, threatening the queen. Queen takes knight. If they trade queens, then we would play knight takes queen, check, and we take the rook. And if they don't trade queens and move it away, we could continue with knight takes on c7, winning this rook. I don't want to drag out this line much longer because it's pretty obvious, right? No matter what, even if they play knight to f6 in every case, we come out ahead. You know what a lot of opponents do to me? They say to themselves, well, let me see if at least in this messy position they don't notice, and I'll play d6. Maybe here, they say, they'll give me this check, I'll move the king, take the rook, and they won't realize that this bishop is aiming at the queen. So what should we do if they play this d6 against us? Well, it's very simple. Logically, once again, let's carefully capture this important point right here, and with truly drastic consequences. Because you tell me, what possible way is there to save this rook in this position? In fact, there is absolutely no possible way to save it at all. So logically, d6 is a mistake that's totally easy to punish, and it is a mistake that can be punished very easily. Now then, chess teacher, is there any halfway decent way to defend this position, or is it simply lost? Well, there is a pretty interesting move that defends everything. Pay attention, let's see if you can find it. Whenever you want to study with me, you can simply pause the video at any time and try to carefully find the moves. And then when you are ready, hit play again, okay? And see if you got it right with what I say. The idea is that if we attack here and here, there is a move, once again, king to f8, the saving move for black in this line, both at the beginning and now, which defends the g7 square. And not only that, but here we wouldn't win the rook either, just a pawn. Knight takes on c7, now the rook would simply move away and we'd have equal material because we lost the f2 pawn and they would have lost the c7 pawn. But my friends, here I bring you one of the secrets of this variation. Not only do we have the threats from this pawn and this pawn, but we also have a much more serious threat, which is the threat to the queen on f2, who tried to break in too aggressively. And now we can punish her with this tremendous move right here, knight to h3. Our opponent thought they had everything defended, and now it's our turn to threaten their most important piece, the queen. Knight to h3, and as you can see, there's only one square available for the queen. If not, you can pause the video and check for yourself, okay? The only available square is queen to d4, alright? There is no other possible square for that queen without losing her. The idea is that now they're threatening our bishop on c4. Many of you might say, well, here I play c3 and win the queen. Careful, because you're losing the bishop on c4. The correct move is to play d3. Very good. The sun is coming out through the window. It's a beautiful day. I hope you can see the board clearly. I think it should be visible, right? And if not, well, I apologize. How should black continue here? Be careful, because now the threat is starting to get really serious. If our opponent now makes a completely stupid move, like for example, h6, right? Which does absolutely nothing. Any other move would be the same, right? Now we're threatening c3, this time for real, winning the queen. Why? Because this queen doesn't have a single possible square to go to. So here, there's only one way to try to save this queen. And I'm going to show you in a game that reached this position, and white ended up winning in just a few moves. How did black play? Well, logically, they had to give the queen an escape route, and they did it with this bishop move. Bishop to b6. So this bishop solid d, how do you say it? Solidarizes, or however you say it, with the queen, man, I can't even talk, to give her a square. Bishop to b6. And now, if we played c3, this queen could simply move away, you see? He gave her the square, but now we have so many threats that we can keep putting on the pressure. Our position is wonderful. How did the player with the white pieces do it? Rook to f1. What a beautiful move, right? It threatens the f7 square where the king is, and with x-rays, the bishop is threatening it too. The threats here would start to become too strong. For example, moving this knight away, and then giving this check with the rook when the king goes to capture this pawn. With the queen, when the rook. So here, black really has to do something in order to prevent this kind of entry from happening. The main idea is that the most important move would be to defend this capture right here, and black did exactly that with the move f6. And do you know how the white pieces finished the game here in a truly beautiful way? That's right, the knight takes on f6. Now, why do these kinds of sacrifices actually work in chess? Because, look, chess teacher, a lot of times in my games, I sacrifice pieces, and then I end up losing because I got a little too cocky. The clear idea here is that by capturing this pawn, what we're doing is opening lines toward the king. And when we open lines with so many pieces available, the idea is that it should almost always work. And here, white calculated one step further. Here it's true that you can capture this knight and it's still defended by the pawn, but here, white continued with this wonderful move, bishop to h6. So what does that mean? This knight can't capture the queen. Why not? Because it's pinned by the rook. This bishop can be captured. This bishop, yes, and in fact it was captured. It's simply an exchange. You capture my bishop, I capture your knight. However, the game ended in 2 moves because the king simply asked to move out of check. And now, come on, let's see if you can guess the winning move. You can pause the video, and now I'm going to say it. Here, the winning move is the following: queen to g7, and there's no way to save this rook on h8. And not only that, but once this rook on h8 is captured, whether it stays here or tries to escape, we would end up delivering a tremendous checkmate. Pay close attention to this example, because it's actually a game I played myself, alright? I played this position we're talking about here, and suddenly I hit him with this queen to g4. A really strong threat. I have to admit something, I think my opponent wasn't very prepared for this move. But honestly, who is prepared for this move? Had you ever studied it before? Probably not. My opponent didn't play queen to f6, but instead played the most logical move, g6, alright? This happened in a blitz tournament. That is a fast-paced chess tournament, okay? g6 was played, and here you need to keep something very important in mind. You can't make the mistake here of allowing this move, d5, because you'd lose a piece, alright? If here you play, for example, knight to d2, just to say something, or knight to e2, you would simply lose a piece with d5. They attack your bishop and also your queen. So, here when they play the g6 variation against you, which you'll see a lot, you should do the following: queen to f3. It's that simple. You move your queen off the white bishop's diagonal. And not only that, but you're also threatening the well-known checkmate, the scholar's mate, or the schoolmate, alright? Yeah, with queen takes f7. So here, my opponent replied with knight to f6. Good move. How should you continue once you get here? Which you will every time they play g6 against you. My idea, and it's a very powerful one, is to play this knight to e2. You'll see why in a moment, alright? And now, for example, after the move e6, which almost always comes because they need to develop this bishop, you can do two things. Either let them play bishop to g4, which I actually love when they do because nothing at all happens, or if it really worries you, you can play h3. Nothing special, right? You play h3 and they can't come in through here. But honestly, I prefer to go on the attack. So what I did was play d3 to bring in my dark squared bishop. My opponent obviously saw the opportunity and came here to attack the queen. So what do? I move it away and now I'm going to threaten this bishop, and watch out, I might even trap it at some point. That's why my opponent says, look, you know what? I'm gonna trade this bishop for the knight. It's a logical idea because since he has all his pawns on white squares, the light squared bishop isn't gonna be that good. So here I'm gonna recapture with the knight. And now the position is getting really interesting. My opponent played knight to h5. I'm gonna take him out soon, you know? You're about to see a really beautiful way to beat him. This knight is threatening my queen, but I'm not worried. I just move back here, and pay attention because I'm threatening checkmate again. So, well, my opponent castles, and now I come in with the bishop. Look at what a great move this is. And this is how you take advantage of weak squares, you see? I am threatening the rook, which can't move. This rook can't leave because it has to keep defending the f7 square, since it's being attacked by the queen and the rook. So there's only one move to save the rook, and that's knight to g7. And now what? How does the game continue? It looks like everything is defended now. Well, here I go. h4. The good news is that we haven't castled yet, and this rook can join the attack by opening up the lines with h4 and h5. Also, if this worries you, you can always castle long at some point in the game, and you'll be in great shape. Pay attention, because here my opponent started thinking for a long time and didn't know what to do. Suddenly here there's nothing to save against our attack. So he brought his other knight to e7 to bring it into the defense. And me, well, I didn't even think twice about it. High five! If my opponent decides to capture with the knight, then I can take the rook. Thank you very much. If my opponent decides to capture with the pawn, then I'll simply continue with bishop takes d7, king takes d7, and this position is going to be completely winning, since neither the pawn nor the knight will be there. The king will be totally exposed and will end up in checkmate. But that's not what happened in the game. My opponent said, I don't want to open up the whole position. Instead, I want to play, for example, queen to d7, and let's see what you do. But my hands didn't shake, and I started with bishop takes knight, king takes bishop, and now checkmate is imminent. Look at what a beautiful move this is. h6, check. The king can't escape, it has to go back. And now queen to f6 would end up winning the game, because the mate is completely unstoppable. They would have to sacrifice the knight, but it wouldn't help them at all because we capture it, and then mate would once again be inevitable. So after this h6, my opponent resigned the game. If you enjoyed this video and want more videos like this, all you have to do is leave a like. Let me show you this app I use to study my lines. As you can see, there are a ton of courses available. In fact, even with the free plan, you have several courses available. For example, let's study the Rossolimo, which actually is quite similar to the opening I'm showing you today, right? You can study all the lines. As you can see, this would be one line, and there are up to 18 in this opening. Then you can practice it, do a speed run, play, analyze it, solve problems, a ton of things. And this app doesn't just have courses, it has quizzes, puzzles, and lots of original features that will really help you study. So if you want to try it out, you'll find it right below in the description.
Y nos
And
veremos
I'll see you
mañana
tomorrow in
en
the
el
next video.
próximo
Thanks for watching.
Adiós.
Goodbye.